morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. With Captain America the Winter Soldier opening a month early, the first weekend of April rather than May, it did indeed seem like the summer movie season had started early and in earnest. We got a big summer blockbuster to enjoy and had a big summer blockbuster-sized box office debut. Marvel put out some new stories, or at least teases, about their overall Marvel Cinematic Universe to really drive home the fact that Cap is part of a much bigger picture, and upon seeing the film, that is indeed the case. And then finally, many of the other studios released trailers for their big summer movies to play in front of Captain America the Winter Soldier. So that all kicked up a big cloud of summer blockbuster excitedness. And also, just on a side note, if you're wondering why trailers are released when they are, sometimes it might just seem they just come out, like at the whim of the studio. And even though trailers today get most of their views on the internet, they're still released in correlation to non-internet events. Sometimes awards shows, for instance, I would expect some kind of debut or new footage to come out with the MTV Movie Awards on Sunday, or it's to play in front of a movie that's being released that has a similar demographic, an audience, to the movie that's being advertised in the trailer. So with Captain America the Winter Soldier, a big comic book movie, big summer blockbuster, that's why you saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men, Days of Future Past, etc. Now some of you might say, oh, well, those trailers came out a week early. Well, that's because Captain America came out a week early overseas. So the trailers were released to coincide with that release in 32 markets overseas. So a lot of people were seeing that movie a week early. So we got to see the trailers a little bit earlier, but we saw Captain America a little bit late. So that's just a little bit of information on how movie trailers are released. Now back to this whole excitement of the summer movie season. It's really interesting after all this hoopla and everyone being all like, summer's here. It's not, because everything has really died down. The cloud has dissipated, and we're back to our usual April doldrums, where a few kind of movies are floated out there. But I think that we're all ready for summer now, and there's no movie to really capitalize on that except Captain America the Winter Soldier. And in movie math, I had said, oh, other studios should schedule their releases offensively. They should try and cut Captain America's box office down. Well, if you want to put a positive spin on it, in the We're All Friends in Hollywood playbook, why didn't another studio try and build on the momentum of Captain America the Winter Soldier? Everyone had a great time going to the movies. People are they feel it summer. They have that summer movie-going experience, and there's no movie follow-up saying, come on back. And as I said, that's going to end up being Captain America the Winter Soldier. People are just going to go and see that movie again. We'll see what happens next year, though. I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, summer expands even further to the first weekend in April. I think that's very possible at this point. If it happens again, it definitely will. We'll see if anybody tries to, but I wouldn't expect going forward for people to allow this kind of lull again. But anyway, there's not only a lull in the movies hitting theaters and a lack of trailers coming out. Not a lot of trailers this week. Nothing compared to like 2 or 3 a day that we had in the last 2 weeks. But also, not a lot of news stories. So I really had to scrape the bottom of the barrel, but let's see what I came up with. Now, one is actually about a summer hit from a couple of years ago, and that's the Karate Kid remake that Will Smith and his wife Jada Pinkett Smith produced. They produced it themselves as a star vehicle for their son Jaden, and it was very effective. Some people didn't like it, but overall, obviously, it was popular because it was quite a successful film at the box office. It starred Jaden Smith and then also Jackie Chan. And I really liked the film. I thought, it didn't have quite the heart of the first film, the original with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita, but at the same time, it had a great ending. I think, I think I've always said it's important for a movie to start out really big and end really big. So you want to stay, you sit through the boring parts, but then you leave the theater being like, that was fun. And I think that's what Karate Kid did. And I thought it was very clever to take the action to China, as Jaden Smith was someone who moved from Detroit to Beijing, and he was a fish out of water, and it also dealt with cultural differences. And that kind of is a very different story than the original Karate Kid, where he had more of a social issues, just with kids in his own community. And this added, culture shock to it. And I thought it was very good, very sophisticated. They added a really great sophisticated, backstory for Jackie Chan's character. And I overall really liked it. We've actually been talking about authenticity with Godzilla, and I think this is a film that, kind of embraced that and embraced other cultures. Took place, as I said, in China, and was successful for it. There was a market for it. People were interested in that. So they're going to make a sequel. My only concern is they might have waited too long. I'm very curious to see how this would turn out. It's something I would definitely see. I think now that Jaden's a little older, maybe you could even have some more hardcore fighting, because you can't have little kids beating the crap out of each other, at least too much. But now that he's older, perhaps you could have some really great fighting sequences in there, which might draw in not only the original audience, but maybe some new people as well. Also, I think it's smart to, Legend of Korra does this quite well. How to Train Your Dragon is playing along with this, is trying it out to age up your characters in your movie along with the audience. Sometimes in the past, Hollywood would be like, well, let's find a new kid, because this is a franchise about a kid who's, taking karate lessons. Instead, they're like, no, it's about Jaden Smith's character and his relationship with Jackie Chan and what studying kung fu. A big joke about that is made in the movie, that it's kung fu, not karate. What studying kung fu does for him, both in terms of the interest of the sport and personally, as an individual. Because there's a lot to kung fu about personal growth. It's really a beautiful subject matter. I saw the Grandmaster last year, and it talked a lot about the philosophy behind martial arts, and I thought that was fascinating. And so maybe this movie will delve into that a little bit as well. So I think there's a lot of potential here. The only question is, did After Earth ruin this movie? Did it ruin the chance of anybody wanting to see this? Because that was the Will Smith, Jaden Smith sci-fi pick that M. Night Shyamalan directed. In retrospect, some people were like, well, maybe Will Smith will bring M. Night Shyamalan up, but M. Night Shyamalan dragged Will Smith down. So nobody should touch that guy. He's just bad luck at this point. So the question is, can Jaden Smith recover from that? I think he still gets a lot of, coverage in the press. There was that funny picture of his whole family, Jaden and Willow reacting to Miley Cyrus's performance with Alan Thicke's son. So I thought that was very funny. And I think Jaden still seems like a really cool kid. He seems really nice. So, and everybody loves Jackie Chan. So I would hope that this movie could do okay. But I'm curious to how you guys feel. Are you just over Jaden Smith? Do you think that, you don't want to, support him anymore? And would you go and see this Karate Kid 2 film? It also, I think, depends a great deal on how Annie does. That's another Will Smith film. He originally, as we've discussed, wanted to produce it for his daughter Willow, and she didn't want to do it. With all due respect, she didn't want to be in movies. She's not interested in that, at least right now. So Quvenzhané Wallis has taken over the role, but that movie looks not so great in terms of quality. I think it's great what they're trying to do. I think it's great what the Smiths are doing with the properties that they're kind of adapting and updating. But the first Karate Kid worked out great. I'm a little worried about Annie, and so we'll see if Karate Kid 2 is hurt by Annie and also After Earth. But I think it's very exciting, and I would love to take another trip to see Beijing. I think the movie did a great job of not, it was shot there, and it looked like it was. It didn't seem like it was like, oh, this is Toronto with a couple of posters made to look like Beijing. So I enjoyed that as well. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story is that it was just announced last night. Boy, that's how close to the wire I was trying to find stories. But last night, Amy Poehler was announced as going to join Tina Fey in a movie. Now, obviously, this is to capitalize off their success with the Golden Globes. Because Baby Mama, a film they made a couple of years ago, not so great. Not even that great of a film. I think the material was not up to par with their own material that they usually have for themselves. But they're going to try it again. They're going to try and say, hey, everybody's more interested in us again. They're going to be hosting the Golden Globes again, so it's not like this is going away. And in the film, it's called The Nest. And it's about two sisters who are grown up, obviously, who they go home, and they find out their parents are selling their childhood home. So they have like one last weekend there, and of course they have like heart-to-heart discussions. They don't like each other, they fight, etc., etc. And by the end, they're fully realized, and they love each other, and they have a better understanding of who they are. And along the way, it's going to be funny. Now, I think this is interesting. I think that this seems a little bit too tame to me. I hope maybe it will be like the level of Bridesmaids, but I think this just seems very small. It seems maybe a little more TV. Both of them obviously have a TV background. Amy Poehler, for instance, is on Parks and Recreation, and I always feel it's a shame that she kind of made herself end up being the straight person on her own sitcom, and all the good jokes go to Aziz Ansari, and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, Megan Mullaley's husband. He's the guy with the big mustache. He's really funny on that show. Aubrey Plaza has a lot of great jokes. Chris Pratt, very funny cast. But then poor Amy Poehler is just ending up, being someone they can bounce jokes off of instead of really having a lot of good jokes herself. It's unfortunate, and I think that it's something that all comedians, particularly I think female comedians, need to look out for. They need to make sure that they have the crazy, and that's what I think is missing from this this setup. Tina Fey, also very good. I think she has really good comedy. I think both of them have very good, insightful comedy. Kind of almost a commentary a little bit, so it makes you laugh and think. But I don't know if they're big enough for a movie, and let me elaborate on that. I think someone who has really understood the movie market quite well is Melissa McCarthy. As a female comedian, she's able to make people forget that she's a female comedian. She's just a comedian, and that's because I think she goes big. No pun intended. I think she does a great job picking really huge ideas. I think that Identity Thief, high concept, really a lot of fun, really outrageous. I guess outrageous is a good word. Kind of like the comedies that Will Ferrell is making and such. The Hangover. Those movies are really over the top. They raise the bar. And I think Melissa McCarthy understands that. For her new trailer for Tammy, she's robbing that fast food place with a greasy bag on her head, asking for food, but at the same time, it's a holdup. It's a robbery, and I think that again ups the game. And I think Melissa McCarthy understands what you need to do to compete in the the comedy market today, and Bridesmaids did that. So I feel that this property, this nest, at least the way it's being described, seems a little bit too small, not ambitious enough, not over the top enough to really be competitive at the box office. And I don't know about Amy Poehler and Tina Fey being silver screen talents. I think they're a draw on the small screen where the Golden Globes air. But I think that I don't really see them getting a movie audience into theaters. Tina Fey has had a few hits, mostly, Muppets, Most Wanted, and Admission were not hits. But I think, Date Night did well because Steve Carell was in it. That's back when Steve Carell was getting a lot of people into the theater. And also Mark Wahlberg's cameo was played up quite a bit there. I don't know how much, as I said, I don't think Tina Fey brings people into the theater. So I'm wondering, does this sound like something that you want to go into the theater to see? Do you want to see Amy Poehler and Tina Fey as two sisters bonding, kind of like in a hilarious way? Or you prefer to see Melissa McCarthy's material where she's going to rob a fast food joint and go cross-country with Susan Sarandon as her disapproving grandmother? Or both. Maybe you want to see both. All right, so the third story of the day is, just kind of maybe like a commentary, actually, about Star Wars Episode 7. As many of you pointed out to me, over the weekend it was announced that they started filming, and casting is almost complete. And I have to say, with that news coming out of nowhere, and that wasn't even broken by somebody else. Disney's admitted this themselves. They said, oh, by the way, we started to film. And I think that just really speaks to the amazing discipline that this production has. I can't believe there are no Star Wars Episode 7 leaks. It's amazing. Nobody over there is talking. I don't know how they're getting everybody to do it. I don't know if there's some kind of incentive program, or J.J. Abrams has a discussion every morning, or sends people little things to put on their desks being like, don't ruin this for everyone. I'm not sure what the incentive is, but it's just really phenomenal to see a movie in this day and age with no leaks. Hardly any leaks at all. There's been some casting, discussion, some casting rumors, but even there, nothing really concrete, nothing really it's so ephemeral. These rumors are so, nothing that we can't even get any traction on them in terms of stories. So here's the thing. While I think we can all respect that and think, that's wonderful. I don't know how you do it, J.J. Abrams. What's your secret? Please share it with everyone else who's getting their movie spoiled. We just talked yesterday about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, really, really tipping its hand in the last few weeks, not only about a Sinister Six setup, but about the death of Gwen Stacy. I just read a review that pretty much confirmed that, and I think that to have this information going out there is not a good idea. I think it seems like a huge spoiler, even though we kind of all suspected it. I discussed this yesterday, but I think it's in other people brought up the fact that they think that maybe there's too much, when a studio's spoiling their own story, maybe we've reached the breaking point. But on the other hand, with Star Wars Episode 7 having no leaks, do you think that actually hurts them? Do you think that keeps them out of the headlines? As I've said, there's very little interest in what's going on over there. And I wonder if because they're unable to keep people engaged, they're not actively engaging the fans in the ramp up to the film, will people be less interested when the film comes out? How do you guys feel? It's kind of like Divergent. This is a film that people just didn't talk about. And I think that it had a really good box office debut, but we're seeing that it's not able to really get other people to see it outside of those who are initially interested in it, because no one's talking about it. It's not benefiting from word of mouth. People just internalize their Divergent joy. And if people internalize their Star Wars Episode 7 joy, will it be able to compete today with other films that people are actively engaged in throughout the entire process, from development to pre-production to production to post to when the movie hits theaters and afterwards. So Star Wars Episode 7, it's kind of an interesting test to see if that time when movies kept things under wraps is over, because it's to their own detriment. So those are the three stories of the day. The viewer question comes from Rodney Reese, and Rodney says, quick question, Grace. What do you think of the idea that if Lucy doesn't completely tank, fingers crossed, Rodney, teaming up Black Widow with an Air Force intelligence officer named Danvers, a.k.a. Carol Danvers. That's Ms. Marvel, or Captain Marvel today, for those of you who are not comic book readers. And to track down an 084 unknown object now that S.H.I.E.L.D. is disbanded. Do you think, because I guess you could say that because we saw, Sharon Carter join with the CIA. So now that S.H.I.E.L.D. is disbanded, some of our Marvel people are going out into, civilian organizations. So do you think something like that, or perhaps even more likely having her reconnect with the Winter Soldier, would wind up cheapening her own film if it is a backdoor for someone else's? Or do you think that just having her name on the masthead, whoever else is there with her, is an achievement in and of itself? Thanks, Grace. Always love your show and insights. Thanks. Thank you, Rodney. I do know when people comment regularly. I think it's great that YouTube now allows you guys to put pictures of yourself or just, avatars in general, because I'm very visually oriented, so I can really spot people who are regular commenters, and I know that Rodney is one of them. So basically what Rodney's saying is, if Black Widow were to get a team film, would that, kind of like Cap has a team film, would that, cheapen her, would that cheapen the achievement of a female superhero film, or would it just be great to have a female superhero film? I think that's a really great question, Rodney, and I think that, the two options that you've presented, I think, give two different scenarios. Now, to have her team up with Carol Danvers, I'm not in favor of that, because I think that Marvel's just kind of making their own version of the Expendables. We don't want, like, an all-girl, Marvel movie. I think it will really limit its audience, and also I think one of the great things about Captain America the Winter Soldier is that Black Widow just was on the same level as everybody else. She was just a member of the team. So was Maria Hill. And I also have seen a couple of people point out that they really respected the fact that there wasn't a romance between Black Widow and Steve Rogers, even though it would have been very easy for Hollywood to put one in there, and what old Hollywood would have done. But they just focused more on that these are professionals who work together, and the camaraderie there. And I think that was really great and really commendable. So I think that you want to see that dynamic continue to be up. I feel that part of the reason Captain America the Winter Soldier is so successful is because it's so diverse, both in terms of gender and race. And so I think that, as you can see, is being rewarded at the box office, just like the Fast and Furious movies. I don't know how many times this is going to happen before the rest of Hollywood gets it, but we'll see. So I wouldn't have an all-female movie for Marvel. I think that would, be a step in the wrong direction to limit the audience, and I think it would make them seem like they were the B team. As for teaming up with the Winter Soldier, I think that could be a really great idea. I think the Winter Soldier needs a lot more development, and I think it's great that he's a big part of the Black Widow's past, at least in the comics. I hope that they continue with that in the movies. As I said in my review of Captain America the Winter Soldier, I thought that Bucky's transformation has been robbed of a lot of its weight because they haven't tied in Natasha, they haven't tied in his KGB past, and I thought the mind wipes, while cool, kind of rob him of developing any personality in this new persona. It just makes him an automaton. Maybe he'll get one now, though, and that could be explored in this kind of movie. I think going forward, you're going to see more and more Marvel movies be team-ups. I think you're going to see less and less of just a solo adventure, because I think that's much more effective, and it allows for a great dynamic. I mean, look at the kind of team you have. I think Captain America the Winter Soldier is a team film. It's a S.H.I.E.L.D. movie about S.H.I.E.L.D., the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is very clearly a team movie. Avengers Age of Ultron, team film. And we'll see what happens with Ant-Man. They have a lot of characters they've cast, Michael Pena, Patrick Wilson. Who are these people playing? Evangeline Lilly, potentially, so you might have a team there. And also it's been said that Paul Rudd will have a daughter, so she might be on the team, Cassie Lang, who eventually becomes a superhero. So I think you're seeing kind of a team being generated there. I think you're going to have, you're going to have less and less of, Batman versus the world, and more like the Bat family that exists in the comic books. I think that's good. I think it lends itself to diversity. It lends itself to changing things up on screen. And I think that Marvel is going to go with this. So I think that if you were to see a Black Widow movie, you would almost definitely see other people in there. And I think it would be great to have the Winter Soldier. And as many people pointed out with Captain America, too, it would be great to see Hawkeye in there. He's a big S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. He and Natasha have a very close relationship that's been hinted at in the first Avengers movie. And so to get Jeremy Renner in there, I think people would be really interested to see kind of like an even darker spy film that deals with, Winter Soldier, Black Widow, their background, and bring in Hawkeye, and maybe some more of the darker characters. I think that could be really compelling. Black Widow movie, I think if Lucy does well, it will happen. I'm not quite sure when. They have till 2028, as I recently reported. That's how far they've planned. Maybe I think you'll see a Black Widow, because I think Scarlett Johansson's relatively inexpensive, popping up in more films. Who's going to be in this Doctor Strange movie? I mean, they're not going to. I think you're going to see hopefully more and more actors. This B team is going to actually eventually become the A team. Samuel L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, Maria Hill, because unlike the other big actors like Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr., who want to go and make other movies and star in other films, these other actors are more than happy to kind of be the consistent members of these teams. And that was supposed to be Agent Coulson. And it's really unfortunate that he's no longer, a part of this. I mean, he has his own TV show, arguably, but I don't know how long that will last, and I think it was a bad trade. I think he should have stuck with the movies. I'm surprised that he's not able to still do both. So what do you guys think? What do you want to see in a Black Widow movie? Do you want to see an all-girl Marvel movie? Or do you want to see... I would like to see Carol Danvers eventually, by the way. But she's a big part of S.H.I.E.L.D. She could easily exist in that universe. Although, then what happens to Maria Hill? They don't want to become too crowded. Would you like to see her team up with the Winter Soldier? Write down what you'd like to see. Thank you so much for your question, Rodney. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's 3 top stories. What do you think of the fact that we're back to kind of like the April doldrums? Do you like the breather, or do you wish that summer really had started early? And also, any questions you have for tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.